My mother trashed my handmade gift and crowned a princess. So I took revenge with an art exhibit, exposed her cruelty, and reclaimed my legacy. I am a 33-year-old woman, and my mother turned 60 this past spring. To mark the occasion, I spent 6 months making her something I thought would mean a lot, a custom mosaic mirror. I cut every piece of glass, myself, layered colors to match her favorite shades, and added seashells from the beach trips we used to take when I was a kid. I even carved a tiny wave pattern into the wood frame, the same way she used to draw waves on the sand with a stick when we were little. She has always said she prefers handmade gifts. I care more about thought than money, she used to say every year when someone got her something flashy. That is why I did not just pick something up from a boutique or send flowers. I put time into this. My time, my hands, my effort. I am the oldest of 3. Then there is Ellis, my 28-year-old brother, and Taryn, our 25-year-old sister. Ellis recently started dating a woman named Gabrielle, and she is different. She is always dressed like she is going to an event, surrounded by a constant perfume cloud and designer everything. She posts get ready with me videos online, even when it is just for a family dinner. None of us knew much about her. She and Ellis had only been together 4 months when Mom's birthday rolled around. The party was at our parents' lake house. It had a big backyard with twinkle lights strung between the trees and one of those rented outdoor speaker systems playing soft jazz. Maybe 30 people showed up, cousins, neighbors, my dad's golf buddies, and a couple of old co-workers. It was not a small gathering. I brought the mirror in its box, wrapped in heavy ivory paper and tied with dark blue ribbon. Inside was also a note I wrote explaining the meaning behind the design. Every shell, every glass shard, even the angles I had chosen. They all represented something from our lives together. I handed it to her when it was time for presents, and she smiled politely as she opened it. She looked at it, tilted her head, then said, "Oh, it's interesting," before sliding it under the table and moving on. There was no hug, no thanks, nothing. Less than 5 minutes later, Gabrielle handed over her gift, a tiny velvet box. Inside was a rhinestone tiara, not even real silver, just flashy costume jewelry you would find at a bridal shop. My mom gasped like she had just received a royal heirloom. "This," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "is what a real gift looks like." Everyone laughed, even my dad, who usually stays out of this kind of thing. Gabrielle played it up too, doing a little curtsy while people clapped. My mom placed the crown on her own head and strutted around like she was hosting a pageant. Someone called her Queen Mom, and she made it her party nickname. Meanwhile, my mirror sat under the table, untouched. At the end of the night, I checked. It was not there anymore. I did not see it on any side table or shelf either. I asked my mom where it was, and she said she thought someone moved it and shrugged. The next morning, before most people were awake, I found it in the large trash bin outside, still wrapped, shattered. I did not touch it for a few minutes. I just stared. Some of the shells had come loose and were sticking out between torn paper and jagged mirror edges. Later, when she came out to the deck with her coffee, I asked her straight out why she threw it away. She said, "It looked messy. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't want it lying around." Just like that. That was the moment everything shifted. I did not cry or argue. I just nodded and walked back inside. But I knew right then I was not going to let that slide. She made her choice in front of everyone. She called Gabrielle her princess and tossed my work in the garbage like a used napkin. From that moment on, I stopped treating things as just family drama or casual favoritism. I paid attention. I started watching the way Gabrielle got looped into things, group chats, plans, even small traditions she had not earned. I started taking note of things my mother forgot to invite me to, while Gabrielle somehow always got a seat at the table. I did not make a scene. I did not start drama. I did not even tell anyone about the mirror, not yet. But I made a quiet decision that I was going to make both of them regret how that night went, and I had no intention of playing nice about it. Because if my mother wanted a crown and a princess so badly, I was going to show her exactly what kind of kingdom she had built, and what happens when the daughter you threw away stops pretending to play along. I took the shattered mirror home in the same torn wrapping it had been tossed out in. I did not cry or talk about it. I just found an empty box, slid the broken frame inside, and placed it on the top shelf of my closet. I did not tell anyone what happened. Not my dad, not Tehran, not even Ellis. But the next day, I called my best friend Nia and asked if she could come over. Nia works as a graphic designer, and she has this calm way of making chaos feel like something you can shape. I showed her the box, told her the story, and she just listened. Then she said, "You know, this isn't just about you. What if this kind of thing happens to other people too?" That is where it started. We threw around ideas, a blog, a zine, a photo series. Then we landed on something that felt bigger, an art exhibit. It was not just about the mirror, but about all the handmade gifts that got trashed, ignored, mocked, or forgotten. Things that carried meaning for the giver, but never even got a second glance from the person who received them. We called it unclaimed heirlooms. I reached out to a few people in local artist groups, mostly women I had met at community events. I told them about the concept, and within days, responses came in. One woman had spent a year knitting a blanket for her sister's baby, then found it later in a donation bin, tag still attached. Another had written her father a letter. After they reconnected post-divorce, he returned it unopened. One had made a watercolor portrait of her grandmother's house, and her aunt tossed it because it did not match the living room decor. By the end of the week, 8 people had joined. I found a space at the local art center, small but clean and well lit, and rented it for 3 weekends in December, right before Christmas. It felt fitting. I took the broken mirror out again. The frame had a long crack down the right side. Some of the shells were still intact, others had snapped. I replaced a few of the glass pieces but left several of the broken ones. I used a kintsugi technique I had seen online, applying gold resin to highlight the cracks instead of hiding them. The result looked raw but deliberate. My title plaque read, "Thrown away twice. Once in childhood, once in a trash can." Nia helped me design display cards for each piece, and I added a small QR code next to each one. Scanning it took you to a private page with the story behind the item. No names, but detailed and honest. I posted teasers on my small art account. Nothing dramatic, just phrases like, "Not every gift is meant to be loved by the one who receives it," paired with cropped photos of some of the work, a folded quilt edge, a smashed letterbox, the corner of my mosaic. 2 days later, my mom called. She asked about some art things someone saw online, said it looked familiar, and asked if I knew anything about it. I told her I was one of the featured artists. She laughed softly and said, "That's nice, dear. Is it something small?" I did not answer that part. She still had not figured it out, or maybe she did not want to. Meanwhile, Gabrielle decided to host what she called a holiday mixer the weekend before the exhibit opened. It was royal-themed, that was her actual wording. She made a flyer with gold lettering and a little crown emoji next to her name. Women were told to wear tiaras or statement headpieces. Men were told to dress in formal nobility style or bring an offering to the queen or words. Ellis thought it was hilarious. He sent a screenshot of the invite to our family group chat and joked that I should come as the court jester. Taryn sent a laughing emoji. My mom wrote, "So elegant. Gabrielle has such taste." I did not reply. I RSVP'd directly to Gabrielle with a polite no, telling her I had another commitment that night. What I did not tell her was that I had sent out 40 custom invitations for a private preview of our exhibit on that same evening. We called it a soft launch. I invited everyone from my parents' neighborhood, people my mother played tennis with, a few from my dad's office circle, and several of the regulars at the wine club Gabrielle had just joined. I made sure the gallery's invitation looked tasteful, white and gold with a sketch of a broken vase on the front. I kept my name out of the title but listed myself as the project lead in small print. And I included one sentence that read, "Each piece tells a real story of rejection, invisibility, and what gets left behind, especially by the people who were supposed to care." The responses started coming in that afternoon. Most said yes. A few sent questions. One woman from my mom's tennis group replied, "This sounds so powerful. Is Gabrielle's piece going to be in it?" I did not even need to answer. The opening night was already starting to write itself. While my mom and Gabrielle were busy handing out plastic tiaras and sipping wine from gold-rimmed glasses, the soft launch of our exhibit opened quietly across town that same Friday evening. We kept it invite only for that night. About 50 people showed up, mostly artists, a few press contacts Nia had worked with before, and close family I trusted not to stir things up unnecessarily. My Aunt Renata arrived 10 minutes after the doors opened. She brought her partner and a bottle of sparkling water as a gallery gift. She walked in, took one look at the mirror piece, and froze mid-step. Her eyes moved from the frame to the title card, then down to the QR code. She scanned it, read the story, and did not say a word for a minute. Then she turned to me and asked, "Is this the birthday one?" I did not say yes. I just gave her a small smile and stepped aside so others could read too. Renata kept staring at the piece for a while, then whispered, "She threw this away. This is stunning." She did not press further, just gave my shoulder a squeeze and moved on to the next section. People stayed longer than expected. Some read every story, scanning every code. One woman cried while reading about the returned letter. Another stood in front of a broken ceramic bowl for 15 minutes. A local blogger who writes about art and personal narratives stopped by unannounced. She'd seen the teaser post online and wrote a small article about it that same night. She called the exhibit the most emotionally raw and visually poetic storytelling installation she had seen that year. The next morning, a community newsletter made it to my mom's mailbox. It is a print-only local publication she gets for the recipes and neighborhood updates. This one featured a small blurb about the exhibit with a photo of my mirror right there on the back page. You could clearly see the cracked glass, the gold lines, and the seashells embedded in the bottom curve. She called me within the hour, her voice clipped, her tone colder than usual. "Is that your mirror in this article?" I said yes. There was a pause. Then she asked why I was trying to embarrass her, saying it was not necessary to drag private family things into the public. I told her it was not about her. It was about what it means to put time into something only to have it thrown away, about all the people who have experienced the same kind of disregard. She did not like that answer. She tried to pivot, bringing up Gabrielle's mixer, saying it had been a huge success, that everyone looked amazing, and that people were still talking about how on theme everything was. I told her I was glad they had fun and left it at that. The next few days were quiet until Gabrielle messaged me on Instagram. Her message was short but obvious. She asked why people were tagging her in comments about being shallow and crown-obsessed. She said the posts were confusing and asked if I had mentioned her in something. I had not. I had not posted a single name, but I was not surprised people had connected the dots: the woman with the tiara, the mother who threw out the gift, the daughter who made art out of it. None of the details were secret in the family circle. Later that night, Ellis called. He sounded tired and annoyed. He said Gabrielle had been crying and told me the whole thing felt petty and way too personal. He wanted to know why I was making this a thing. I reminded him I had not named anyone. The stories were anonymous. If people figured things out, maybe that said more about the truth than about me. He said Gabrielle felt humiliated and did not appreciate being the center of attention in a public shaming performance. I asked him why she thought the exhibit was about her. He did not answer that, just said, "This art thing is getting out of hand." I told him it was not a thing, it was a reflection, literally. He hung up not long after that. That same weekend, our exhibit started trending locally. The blogger's post got reshared by a few local art accounts. One of the exhibit photos made it into a slideshow on a small lifestyle website. My mirror was in the center. Someone tagged Gabrielle in a comment under the photo of a crown-shaped painting another artist had contributed, one inspired by conditional love dressed up as praise. Gabrielle deleted the comment, then blocked the account that posted it. Back at home, my mother sent me a text about Sunday dinner, just family. Gabrielle and Ellis will be there. I hope you can join. I did not reply. The next day, Tehran messaged me a screenshot of a Facebook post Gabrielle had written, talking vaguely about jealous energy and people who tear others down instead of building something real. It had no names, but it was not subtle. That same afternoon, a woman from the art center asked if we wanted to extend the exhibit for an extra weekend. They had had requests from several schools to do guided visits with their art students. I said yes, then sent out a new round of invitations. This time, I added a second piece, smaller, titled Crowned and Hollow. The exhibit was still open when I noticed her, my mother. She walked in during the second Saturday afternoon showing unannounced, wearing a pearl-studded cream coat and her hair perfectly blown out. No Gabrielle, no Ellis, just her. She moved through the space slowly, pausing at a few installations with forced interest, but her eyes kept drifting toward the mirror. She stood in front of it for a long time. The lighting above the piece was set to catch the gold kintsugi seams, so it glowed just slightly, even in the daylight. The story page was right next to it. She read every word twice. A teenager standing nearby, maybe 15 or 16, glanced between the mirror and her and asked if she was the artist's mother. She smiled tightly and said, "No, just someone who appreciates art." I stood near the back wall, close enough to see her clearly but far enough that she did not notice me. I did not walk over. I did not say anything. I just watched her read about what she did, surrounded by strangers who had no idea the woman standing there was the subject. She did not linger long. She took a trifold brochure from the welcome table, turned around and walked out without looking back. That night, she did not call me. She called my father. I only found out because he texted me the next morning with just one sentence. "She's upset." I told him, "Maybe don't throw away your daughter's work next time." I did not reply to his text. I did not need to. He had not said much since the birthday party, had not taken sides, had not gotten involved. But that message told me exactly where he stood now. Later that week, my cousin June stopped by the exhibit. She volunteers at the community center on weekends, and saw the event flyer with my name while refilling the coffee stand. She had not known I was involved until then. She came back the next day during her break and brought a friend with her, Petra, an interior stylist who freelances for a small design and lifestyle magazine. Petra loved the concept. She took a photo in front of the mirror, asked about the gold repair, and then scanned every QR code in the room. She stayed through closing and came back again 2 days later with her editor. The magazine decided to run a feature called Healing Through Objects, a winter spread focused on how people turn personal pain into beauty. They planned to use my mirror as the centerpiece of the article. No names, just the title, the photo, and a brief artist statement about creative rejection. Petra asked for a short quote to go alongside it. I gave her one line: "Sometimes the pieces they toss away are the ones you needed to become whole." Meanwhile, my mother had gone quiet. No texts, no calls, nothing. But I knew the silence would not last. The following weekend, she hosted a brunch for some neighbors, a few of my dad's business friends, and Ellis and Gabrielle. One of the guests brought a preview of the magazine feature. Petra had posted a behind-the-scenes photo on her professional page, and someone forwarded it to the group chat. They all shared it. According to Taran, who was there, the moment the image came up, my mom stiffened. One of the neighbors said, "Isn't that the piece from that art show? It's getting a lot of attention." My brother Ellis glanced at the phone and asked if it was really that mirror, the one from the birthday party. My mom snapped back immediately. It wasn't even that good. She just made it dramatic. Gabrielle, not reading the room at all, laughed and said I should make one of those broken mirrors for their engagement party. It could be a fun family touch. Apparently, no one laughed. Even the woman pouring mimosas paused. Taran called me after the brunch. She did not take sides at the party, just sat quietly. But now she sounded different. She said, "That was too far. She's turning it into a joke." I asked if she was just realizing that now. She said no, but hearing it out loud like that, it hit differently. A few weeks later, the gallery invited me to join a panel discussion they were planning called Art as Response, when creativity confronts family silence. They wanted 3 artists from the exhibit to speak. I accepted. I knew it would not be about drama. It would be about how quiet choices echo louder than shouting, how some people try to erase you, and how sometimes your work puts you back in the room without saying a word. The panel was scheduled for early January. The engagement party was set for late February, and something told me Gabrielle had already put custom decor on her to-do list. 2 weeks later, the engagement party arrived, labeled Regal Romance, a night to celebrate crowns and commitments. The invitation came in a scroll tied with gold ribbon, sealed in wax, and delivered by a courier in a black vest. The envelope had calligraphy so ornate it looked like something from a wedding in a historical drama. I did not respond right away. A few days after the invite arrived, my mother called. She started with small talk, then shifted to reminding me how important family unity was and how I should just be nice for one night. I did not argue. I said I would think about it. I already knew I was going, but not for the champagne toast or the family photo. I designed a necklace a few days before the party. It was small, delicate, almost minimalist. The pendant was made from a triangular shard of the broken mirror, coated in clear resin to smooth the edges and seal in the fracture lines. I threaded it onto a silver chain and printed a small tag to attach to the box. The tag read, "From something you threw away, reclaimed, reimagined." I wrapped it in a soft gray velvet pouch and placed it in a black gift box lined with satin. Simple, understated, clean, the kind of gift that would not draw attention until it was opened. The ballroom was dressed in navy and gold with oversized floral centerpieces, velvet runners, and a fake throne backdrop for photos. Crowns were on nearly every surface, from cupcakes to cocktails to the welcome sign that read, "Celebrate the royal union of Ellis and Gabrielle." Guests walked around with sashes that said things like Queen's Crew and Loyal Subjects. Gabrielle wore a white satin gown with crystals along the neckline, and a gold-plated tiara that tilted slightly every time she turned her head too fast. My mom was in a full-length navy dress dripping in costume jewelry and compliments. I handed my gift to the attendant at the entry table, where it was added to the towering pile of presents. I did not linger. I found a corner near the back and watched. When the time came to open gifts, Gabrielle stood at the center of the room while Ellis read the tags aloud: designer bags, a spa weekend voucher, matching custom luggage. Then Ellis reached for mine and read the name. Gabrielle opened the box slowly. She lifted the necklace out of the pouch, held it up to the light, and blinked twice. "Did you make this?" she asked. I nodded. "It's from the same mirror Mom threw out." The room did not go silent, it froze. Forks stopped midair. Someone coughed into a napkin. My mom turned sharply toward me, her jaw clenched tight enough to crack her lipstick. Gabrielle gave a weak laugh and said, "It's edgy." Then she dropped it back into the box and set it on the table behind her. A few people resumed chewing. One woman whispered, "Isn't that the one from the magazine?" I did not turn to see who said it. The next gift was from my mother. She passed it forward with a proud smile. It was a small box, velvet blue. Gabrielle opened it and held up a sapphire bracelet, thin, vintage, with an intricate clasp. The room oohed and awed. My mom announced it had been passed down through generations, and that she wanted Gabrielle to have something with meaning. I stared at that bracelet because I knew it. I had seen it every year on my grandmother's wrist when I was younger. When I turned 16, she had taken it off, held it in front of me and said, "This will be yours at 18, something to carry forward." But when my 18th birthday came, my mother told me it had been lost during a move. Taran was standing beside the bar and saw my face. She mouthed, "You didn't know?" I shook my head once. I did not say anything. I did not interrupt the gift-giving or make a scene. I just waited. Later, when Gabrielle was walking past with a glass of champagne and the bracelet on her wrist, posing for pictures with my mother under the golden fairy light strung on the arch, I took 2 pictures, clear, well-lit, both of them smiling, the bracelet visible, the tiara still slightly crooked. I sent the photo to my grandmother. She responded with one line, "That bracelet wasn't hers to give." That night, I packed the mirror necklace back into its box. Gabrielle had left it behind, still on the gift table. I slipped it into my purse and left before dessert. The morning after the engagement party, my grandmother rang my doorbell holding 2 things, an old photo album wrapped in plastic and a shoebox with faded corners. She did not sit down. She opened the box on my kitchen table and pulled out a stack of papers, wills, handwritten letters, even a yellowed receipt from a jeweler dated 35 years ago. She flipped through them until she reached one page and tapped her finger on the line. There it was in writing. The sapphire bracelet was hers, not my mother's to give, not part of some shared family treasure chest. It had been passed directly from my grandmother's mother to her, and in her handwriting she had written that it was intended for me, my name, my 18th birthday, clear as crystal. My grandmother explained that when my mother moved out decades ago, she borrowed the jewelry for a formal event and never returned most of it. There had been arguments at the time, then silence. She had let it go back then, but this, giving away something promised, was the last straw. She said, "It's time I stopped letting things slide." Later that week, a formal letter was sent. Not a lawsuit, just an official notice from her lawyer outlining that the bracelet belonged to me and that she expected it returned. My mother did not respond with remorse or explanation. She texted me a single message accusing me of weaponizing art, family, and inheritance just to make a scene and gather attention. Ellis followed up with his own message the next day. He called me selfish, said Gabrielle deserved to keep the bracelet, and told me I already had my little mirror fame, and that dragging this out was petty and cruel. I did not reply to either of them. Instead, I reached out to the editor of the art blog that had previously featured my mirror. I offered to write a guest piece, and they agreed. I titled it "How to Reclaim What You Were Told You Didn't Deserve." It was a reflection, not a rant, about value, erasure, family dynamics, and the small rebellions people take to make themselves seen again. I included stories from others who had reached out after the exhibit, weaving a broader narrative about reclaiming identity through creativity. The post went up on a Wednesday. By Thursday afternoon, it had spread well beyond the blog's usual readers. People began commenting, sharing their own experiences, heirlooms promised, and then withheld, siblings favored, handmade gifts trashed, credit taken for things they had created. It was not just my story anymore, it was thousands. Gabrielle did not respond directly at first, but her Instagram comments started changing. Under her engagement photos, people started leaving phrases like "crown stolen," "not earned and you can't wear royalty that doesn't belong to you." Some were subtle, some were sharp. Then she posted a story. It only lasted an hour before she deleted it, but not before I screenshotted the whole thing. She stood in front of a mirror, clearly agitated, talking fast about how some people just cannot let go of the past and that bitterness will never look good on anyone. She talked about how people build drama out of nothing, and how being creative does not give you a license to attack your own family. She never used my name, but every word was about me. I did not respond. I did not message her or post anything back. I sent the screenshot to Petra, the stylist from the magazine who had first featured my mirror. Petra called me later that evening. She said the response to the original article had been stronger than expected, and that her editor had approved expanding it into a 2-part miniseries, with the updated theme reclaiming family legacies through art. The first piece would be an interview with me about the mirror, the necklace, the bracelet, and the conversation sparked by the exhibit. The second piece would feature my grandmother on how family legacy is not about what is inherited, but about what is honored. Petra already had a title, crowned and cut off. She scheduled a shoot at the gallery and another at my grandmother's house with close-up shots of the original documents and the handwritten note from decades ago. The bracelet at this point still had not been returned. I did not ask for it back again. I did not need to. The story was already moving without me pushing. And this time, the things they tried to keep hidden were not just coming to light. They were being framed in gold. The magazine series dropped on a Monday morning. Petra messaged me the night before with a preview link, but by the time I woke up, it was already spreading. The first article, my interview, was shared across art pages, healing spaces, even parenting forums. The second article, my grandmother's, picked up momentum fast. She did not hold back. She did not mention my mother by name, but the quotes were unmistakable. She talked about legacy, about what happens when people confuse possession with permission, about how respect for the past is not about titles or age, but about how you carry what was entrusted to you. She said, "Some people forget what isn't theirs to give away." That line ended up printed on tote bags a local group made after reaching out for permission. My part focused on the pieces, the mirror, the necklace, the gallery. I did not speak in anger. I spoke about reclamation, about what happens when silence becomes too heavy and how breaking it with creation can be the only path forward. I shared how every step of the exhibit was about building something out of what was dismissed, not to humiliate but to survive. By Thursday, a local news station ran a feature, Artist Reclaims Her Story, One Broken Gift at a Time. They showed the mirror, the photos from the gallery, and a short interview clip with Petra outside the museum. The tone was soft but sharp, about art as testimony, not drama. My mother saw the segment. She sent me a single text. "You've embarrassed us enough. You got what you wanted." I left it unread. There was nothing else to clarify. The message had already gone farther than she ever expected. I had not yelled. I had not called her out by name, but the story landed anyway. Gabrielle tried a different route. A direct message showed up on one of my art pages. She wanted to meet and clear the air, saying things had gotten messy and that narratives online can spiral. Her tone was not apologetic. It was polished, like someone trying to press down wrinkles instead of admitting the fabric was ruined. I did not respond. I placed the original engagement invitation she had sent, still unopened, into an envelope, sealed it, and mailed it back. No note, no explanation. That silence was enough. She never messaged again. Ellis reacted next, quietly but deliberately. He unfollowed me, scrubbed the tags from posts that linked to the blog, and disabled comments on every one of Gabrielle's photos that referenced crowns or legacies. I checked once just to confirm. Then I stopped checking. Taryn stayed in touch. She did not take sides in public, but she called a few nights later and told me she had read both articles twice. She said she always felt she had to keep the peace, that she had let things slide for too long because it was easier than watching the family fracture. But this made her rethink everything. 3 weeks after the magazine's release, a letter arrived. It was notarized and typed on official stationery, folded neatly inside a crisp white envelope. It came from my grandmother. It stated that the entire heirloom collection, every bracelet, brooch, necklace, and ring passed down through her side of the family, was now legally transferred to me. She included one clause: I could only pass the items to someone who understood their value beyond gold. There was no drama in the letter, no pointed words, just a statement of trust. I did not tell anyone. I did not post it. I did not even take a photo. Some victories are not meant to be shared. Some are just meant to settle, like dust finally laying flat after a long storm. A few months later, the community museum reached out and asked if they could display the mirror permanently. They created a small installation in their foyer. The piece now hangs under soft lighting with a brass plaque beneath it that reads, "Discarded, not defeated." Beside it is a guest book. People leave messages in it. Strangers who recognize something in themselves inside the fractured glass and gold seams. Some draw tiny hearts. Some write just a word. One entry said, "This helped me forgive myself. When my mother's next birthday came, I did not attend the dinner. I did not call. I did not message, but I sent a card. No return address, no decoration, just one line on the inside, 'Some crowns are made to break.' She never responded." But this time, the silence did not sting. It did not feel like erasure because now I understood the difference between being forgotten and choosing not to belong.